Tonight, we embark on a journey to feudal Japan, a land rich in culture where geishas often find themselves misunderstood and monks engaged in more than mere meditation. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy the content. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always intriguing to see our global audience connecting. Now, let's set the scene. Dim the lights and perhaps turn on a fan to create a gentle background hum. Together, let's ease into this exploration. When you think of a samurai, what comes to mind? Often, it's the image of a tall, stoic figure standing beneath a cherry blossom tree, accompanied by the haunting sound of a flute. This warrior appears unyielding, never blinking or sweating, embodying honor itself. If you follow the stereotype, you might believe he thrives solely on poetry and principles, fearing only dishonor and perhaps a lukewarm bowl of tea. But history tells a different story. Samurai were not the serene superheroes we imagine. They were armed individuals with tempers, allergies, debts, grudges, and a complicated relationship with rice taxes. The revered Bushido Code, often seen as the ultimate guide to honor, was primarily written after the wars had ended. In those quieter times, samurai found themselves with little to do but craft moral guidelines, creating a narrative of behavior that may not have always reflected reality. So, let's delve deeper into this fascinating world together. Imagine a scene where someone is drafting gym rules after everyone has already left. That's what Bushido is like. The true medieval samurai were professional warriors in a time when being a professional meant you didn't die immediately. Some displayed incredible loyalty, while others betrayed their lords faster than you can say better offer. Many switched sides mid-war, much like free agents in a violent sports draft. In fact, one clan even changed allegiance during a battle simply because they felt like it. Honor, not today, thanks. Let's not kid ourselves. Samurai were not always calm and stoic. These men penned dramatic poetry about their emotions, sulked when they felt overlooked, and sometimes even resorted to murder over an insult to their horse. If you think modern men are emotionally complex, just imagine a samurai who just lost at poetry night. Movies often depict samurai as protectors of the weak, but the reality is that peasants prayed the samurai wouldn't stroll through their village. A samurai's visit usually meant taxes, confiscated chickens, or new rules like don't breathe too loudly near the estate. If a samurai ever defended a village from bandits, it was likely because he was already taxing that village and didn't want any competition. They weren't minimalist monks focused solely on discipline. Instead, they were stressed government employees who had to file reports, attend ceremonies, survive wars, memorize etiquette, manage land, and still maintain an intimidating presence while covered in sweat and questionable decisions. The truth is elegantly straightforward. Samurai were simply human beings wielding swords. Were they dangerous? Yes. Honorable? At times. Perhaps even overhyped? Absolutely. While popular portrayals depict them as flawless warriors, the reality reveals deeply flawed individuals striving to maintain a crumbling nation, all the while hoping their armor conceals their vulnerabilities. It carries a scent of regret. Now, let's talk about ninjas. If films portrayed them accurately, they would be depicted as supernatural shadowy figures, capable of vanishing into thin air, silently traversing rooftops, and dispatching a room full of guards with nothing more than a decorative chopstick and sheer determination. In the realm of pop culture, a ninja resembles a budget Batman, armed with smoke bombs but lacking any emotional depth. Yet, reality has a way of intruding on fantasy. A true ninja, or shinobi, if we're being precise, was not an enchanted assassin skilled in mystical arts. He did not possess the ability to teleport, nor did he somersault through the air like an over-caffeinated gymnast. And that iconic all-black outfit? It was actually created for theater performers, so audiences could easily identify the character meant to be invisible. In truth, real ninjas dressed as everyday people, farmers, merchants, monks, and delivery workers. So, as you reflect on these figures, consider the contrast between myth and reality. What stories do you find most compelling? Imagine a world where stealth is an art, where shadows dance with purpose. In this realm, the local samurai often acted first and asked questions later, making caution essential. Ninjas, known primarily as spies, also took on roles as saboteurs, and when necessary, even as part-time arsonists, using fire to creatively transform spaces. Their most vital skills were not acrobatics or flashy swordplay. Instead, they mastered the art of deception, blending seamlessly into their surroundings and fleeing with remarkable speed, far faster than anyone in sandals should be able to manage. The tools of a ninja might surprise you with their practicality. A sturdy rope? Check. Disguises? Absolutely. Poison? Certainly. And yes, smoke bombs were part of the arsenal too, not for dramatic escapes, but for those moments when things went awry, prompting a hasty retreat into the forest. The image of the silent assassin lurking on rooftops begins to crumble when you consider the construction of Japanese buildings. Their roofs, made of wood and tiles, were designed to reveal your presence at the slightest disturbance. If a ninja attempted to dash across a roof, like in the movies, everyone within a 12-mile radius would surely be alerted. Furthermore, the notion that samurai and ninjas were natural enemies is a myth. In reality, many ninjas were employed by samurai, taking on the tasks that the warriors preferred to keep hidden. Clans like Eager and Koga thrived by providing the services that samurai needed but were reluctant to acknowledge. As you reflect on this intriguing dynamic, consider how perception shapes our understanding of history. Would you like to delve deeper into this fascinating world? Imagine a world of espionage where intrigue and strategy intertwine. The ninja, often viewed as a shadowy figure, is not a supernatural being. Instead, he embodies the essence of a dedicated intelligence operative, skillfully navigating the complexities of his craft. He combines stealth, resourcefulness, and a clear understanding of his limits, knowing precisely when to retreat rather than risk everything for a mission. Ninjas may be seen as dangerous, but their true strength lies in their practicality and intelligence. They are not defined by flashy moves, but by their ability to evade danger and think on their feet. In this narrative, the samurai represent the noble warriors, while the ninja lurks in the shadows, ever watchful. Now, let's consider the shogun, the perceived ultimate authority in Japan. Often envisioned as a godlike figure, he sits in a grand hall, exuding calm and control, effortlessly managing the nation. This image paints him as a divine strategist, untouched by the mundane worries of governance. Yet, reality tells a different story. The shogun is in fact the CEO of chaos, tasked with overseeing a multitude of powerful lords, each with their own agendas and quirks. His role is far from serene. It's a constant balancing act, filled with pressures and challenges, where stress is a constant companion. He navigates a world where loyalty is often uncertain, and the stakes are incredibly high. So, as you reflect on these figures, consider the layers beneath the surface and the complexities that define them. Would you like to delve deeper into this fascinating world? Or perhaps take a moment to pause and absorb these insights? Imagine a weary military dictator, burdened by the weight of a country on the brink of chaos. Medieval Japan resembles a pressure cooker, filled with ambition, rice, and an undercurrent of rage. You might think the emperor holds the reins of power, but in reality, he serves more as a beloved symbol, much like a decorative teapot, cherished but politically impotent. The shogun, however, is the one truly in charge. Every challenge, whether it's famine, rebellious monks, disgruntled samurai, or ambitious merchants, finds its way to his already overflowing desk. His daily existence feels like a precarious balancing act, caught between the delicate dance of diplomacy and the urgent plea, "Please don't revolt today." Loyalty claims to be the rule among the daimos, yet many are secretly plotting against him, while others are too preoccupied with their own mismanagement to cause any unrest. To maintain order, the shogun enforces costly travel to Edo, elaborate ceremonies, and the upkeep of dual households, an elaborate strategy not just for honor, but as a means to drain their resources and ensure compliance. Even in times that seem peaceful, the shogun is merely holding the nation together with political duct tape, bribes, military threats, and the constant anxiety that somewhere someone is sharpening a sword, ready for action. As you ponder this intricate web of power, consider how fragile stability can be when held together by fear and obligation. Would you want to be in his shoes? Did shoguns hold power? Absolutely. But did they truly enjoy it? Not at all. Imagine trying to govern a country where half your subordinates wield katanas, the other half harbor grudges, and everyone believes that meditation can replace therapy. Ultimately, the shogun was not a divine ruler. He was a man juggling the world's most perilous group project, with everyone else ready to draw their swords. Now consider the stereotype of a geisha. You might picture her as a soft-spoken seductress, gliding through lantern-lit streets, whispering poetry into a samurai's ear while strumming a shamisen beneath the moonlight. In films, she often exists merely to appear elegant, act mysteriously, and break hearts, like a living advertisement for perfume, only with better hair. But reality begs to differ. A geisha is not, and has never been, a prostitute. She is not a companion for hire, a samurai's girlfriend, or even the equivalent of that girl at the club who offers enticing eye contact. Geishas are and have always been professional entertainers, meticulously trained in dance, music, social performance, conversation, etiquette, and emotional management. In a room full of samurai, these skills were essentially a form of crisis negotiation. Imagine a world where samurai are the swords of Japan and geisha are the enchanting soundtrack that fills the air, creating an atmosphere so rich it allows everyone to forget the looming political turmoil. Training for a geisha begins at a young age and demands intense dedication. A geisha in training, known as a mo, isn't merely learning the art of flirtation. Instead, she is mastering the delicate balance of captivating a wealthy daimo's attention while ensuring he holds no expectations beyond the moment. This dance of charm without invitation, elegance without submission, and presence without possession is a true art form. The underlying message is clear. I am here to entertain you, not to belong to you. However, many misunderstandings arise from Western visitors in the 19th century, who, in their typical fashion, misinterpreted everything they saw. Observing women in elaborate kimonos, they mistakenly assumed this was a profession of seduction. These were the same visitors who thought chopsticks were tiny weapons, highlighting their lack of understanding. In truth, geisha were esteemed cultural icons. They didn't enter tea houses merely to serve. They came to enrich the atmosphere with their performances, conversations, and wit. For many samurai, the allure of a geisha's charm was often more intimidating than facing an armed opponent. And yes, a geisha could fall in love. Beneath the layers of artistry and tradition, she remained human, despite what appearances might suggest. Imagine the world of the geisha, a realm often misunderstood. When a geisha accepts a romantic patron, it isn't a spontaneous affair. It's a careful negotiation, formal and deliberate. There's less romance and more of an intricate dance of feelings and agreements. The stereotype of the seductive geisha has emerged largely because history has been filtered through the lenses of tourists, who perhaps have vivid imaginations. In reality, geisha are, and always have been, artists, disciplined, skilled, and poised. They embody grace, even under pressure, and none of their artistry requires them to shed their clothing. If the geisha is the most misunderstood woman in Japan, the oiran is the reason behind that misunderstanding. Every time someone mislabels a geisha as a prostitute, an oiran in the afterlife might sigh and say, "That was my role. Please respect the craft." While geisha entertain, oiran represent the pinnacle of courtesans, with an emphasis on their elite status. They are far from the dimly lit back alley stereotypes. Think of them as celebrities within the pleasure industry, luxury figures who embody intimacy in Japan's Edo period. Let's delve into their attire, as this is often where the stereotype begins. An ornan dressed like a bold fashion designer, daring to wear everything at once, showcases a vibrant and complex style. Imagine towering platform sandals, an entire cherry tree worth of ornaments adorning the hair, and a kimono so layered and heavy that walking demands the balance and control of an Olympic figure skater. This is not just a casual stroll, it's a ritualized slow-motion strut known as the orandachu. It resembles a captivating fashion parade, yet carries the tension of a hostage situation. As she glides by, men watch in awe, captivated not only by her stunning appearance, but also by the remarkable strength it takes to remain upright under the weight of silk. But let's clear up a common misconception. Being an Owen is not solely about physical beauty. These remarkable women are well versed in poetry, calligraphy, etiquette, and the art of witty conversation. They play instruments and master the delicate dance of flattering wealthy men without forming emotional attachments. In essence, they are the original influencers, but with genuine talent. Clients didn't simply purchase their time, they competed for it. An omen chose her patrons with the care of a queen, selecting her advisors, all amidst clouds of incense and heightened emotional stakes. This brings us to a common source of confusion, the distinction between omen and geisha. Their paths often crossed in the vibrant entertainment districts, which is why the history surrounding them can become quite tangled. So, as you reflect on this rich cultural tapestry, consider the depth and complexity behind these iconic figures. Wouldn't you like to learn more about their stories? In the realms of society, culture, finance, spirituality, and functionality, the roles we observe are distinctly different. The world of the Aran is steeped in intimacy and status, while the geisha exists within a realm defined by art and performance. One captivates with charm, the other creates an atmosphere. Yet, even today, people still confuse these two, illustrating that misunderstanding can linger for a long time. These figures are both glamorous and powerful, yet simultaneously trapped by their circumstances. They are admired by those who can afford their company and envied by those who cannot. They embody beauty and tragedy, wrapped in silk and burdened by expectations. At least they manage to maintain stunning hairstyles while navigating this complex existence. In cinema, the Ronin is portrayed as the quintessential lone wolf, a mysterious swordsman traversing dusty roads in search of revenge, justice, or perhaps a poetic sunset. He speaks sparingly, fights with precision, and exudes a calmness that suggests he begins each day bathing in cold waterfalls, pondering his destiny. But the reality is quite different. The Ronin represents an unemployed samurai grappling with bills, trauma, and the absence of benefits, lacking any human resources department to turn to. A Ronin is simply a samurai who has lost his lord, whether due to death, being overthrown, or even resignation, essentially running away and hoping no one would notice. The term itself translates to wave man, describing someone adrift in society, like a leaf floating on water, or that friend who seems to change careers every 6 months. The image of the Ronin as a noble stoic warrior is largely a romanticized fiction crafted by authors long after the era of these masterless samurai. These writers didn't experience the hardships that actual Ronin faced. Like many today who find themselves without work, they grappled with identity crises, poverty, and the search for dubious means of survival. Some Ronin became wandering teachers, hoping to find students interested in learning swordsmanship, etiquette, or even how to cope with the collapse of their self-worth. Others attempted farming, often failing miserably and returning to the road, weighed down by even more despair. A few turned to mercenary work or became bodyguards, while others resorted to banditry. It's a harsh truth. When a starving man is given a sword and no means of income, his moral compass can easily falter. The legendary story of the 47 Ronin has become a benchmark for honor, yet it overlooks the reality that most Ronin weren't on quests for noble revenge. They were simply trying to figure out how to afford their next meal. The 47 Ronin gained fame because they succeeded in their vendetta, became legends, and then took their own lives, setting an unrealistic standard for honor and success for other Ronin. Life on the road for these warriors was far from cinematic. It was filled with dirt, danger, and profound loneliness. Ronin couldn't simply knock on a daimyo's door seeking employment, especially when those daimyo were already overwhelmed with samurai whose loyalty was often questionable. In many cities, Ronin are banned from entering, as heavily armed, emotionally unstable individuals pose a public safety risk. Contrary to the cool stereotype, Ronin don't spend their days in duels. Most confrontations end with someone injured or dead. The average Ronin prefers not to wager his life on a sword fight unless absolutely necessary, or unless he has already hit rock bottom. In that case, a dramatic duel might just be a way to check off a bucket list item. Ronin are not mystical warriors. They are jobless samurai striving to survive in the feudal Japan gig economy, armed with a sword, a bad attitude, and whatever dignity they have left. Movies often depict Ashigaru as nameless, faceless soldiers whose sole purpose is to charge forward, scream, and die quickly, allowing the samurai hero to stand dramatically alone. They are portrayed as disposable figures in ill-fitting armor, much like the medieval Japanese version of a video game NPC with just one line to say. However, reality is far less flattering and far more heroic. The Ashigaru are foot soldiers, born of peasant stock, poorly compensated, and expected to fight with whatever weapon their lord provides that month. Sometimes it's spears, sometimes bows. Their struggle is a testament to resilience in the face of adversity. As you reflect on these stories, consider the true nature of survival and the sacrifices made by those who lived in such tumultuous times. Imagine a time when morale dips low and a sharp gardening tool becomes a symbol of resilience. The men known as Ashigaru were not raised in a world of poetry and honor. Instead, they faced rice shortages, endured back pain, and carried the heavy realization that their armor often held more value than their very lives. While stereotypes might label them as incompetent, the truth is that Ashigaru formed the backbone of Japanese warfare. Without their presence, no samurai army could withstand the test of time. They were the infantry, the archers, the first to charge into battle, and the last to stand their ground. They labored tirelessly, cleaning up after the samurai had finished their dramatic poses. In essence, they were everything. When we think of disposable, we might consider it in a different light. Ashigaru were disposable, like your spine. Technically, you could live without it, but winning any battles would be a tall order. Their training varied widely. Some lords drilled their Ashigaru relentlessly, creating disciplined foot soldiers, while others simply handed them spears and said, "Stand there and try not to die too quickly." Regardless, each Ashigaru understood that any battle could lead to glory, loss of limbs, or perhaps both. People often envision a Shigaru as weak or unskilled, mainly because they weren't adorned in lacquered armor or wielding polished katanas. Yet it is essential to recognize the strength and bravery that lay beneath their humble appearances. Imagine a time when men marched tirelessly, covering miles each day. They carried heavy gear, braved freezing winters, slept in mud, and fought fiercely in close combat, fueled by an endurance that seemed to defy the concept of rest days. Among these warriors were the Ashigaru, often overlooked yet indispensable. They held the line, absorbed arrows, swarmed the enemy, and paved the way for victory, while the samurai focused on honor, lineage, and the grandeur of their helmet crests. The Ashigaru were not glamorous figures. They were overworked and underappreciated, constantly one order away from charging into peril, all so that someone with a more ornate helmet could claim the glory of victory. The truth is clear. While samurai may have won battles, it was the Ashigaru who made those victories possible. In modern depictions, the daimyo appears as a menacing figure, a shadowy warlord brooding in a candlelit castle, petting a hawk, and plotting schemes fit for a dramatic series. He is often surrounded by quaking servants, disloyal advisors, and a strategically placed koi pond that symbolizes his emotional depth. Yet, the reality was far less cinematic and much more about property management than high drama. Take a moment to reflect on the unsung heroes of history. Their contributions, though often hidden in the shadows, are what truly shaped the paths of victory. Wouldn't it be fascinating to explore more stories of those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes? Imagine a landlord, but instead of just managing properties, he oversees a realm filled with peasants, samurai taxes, irrigation challenges, and the constant threat of an incompetent cousin attempting to usurp his power each spring. This is a Dao, not a figure bent on world domination, but a leader striving to maintain a rice surplus and prevent riots. While daimyo command armies, they also juggle budgets, construction projects, and a cadre of disgruntled samurai seeking pay raises. Their days begin and end with reports, punctuated occasionally by rebellions, fires, assassination attempts, collapsed bridges, or famines. If you see a daimyo depicted as stoic in artwork, it's likely because the artist couldn't quite capture the weight of existential dread on their face. Our perception often paints daimyo as brilliant strategists. While some were indeed adept, others made choices that could only be labeled as creative disasters. Certain daimyo lavished fortunes on beautifying their castles, neglecting military readiness, while others squandered resources on oversized helmet decorations. One particularly misguided daimyo even believed he could challenge the shogun, armed only with enthusiasm and poorly crafted poetry. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. Then there's the Senkin Kotai system, a rather amusingly termed annual tour by the shogun that could easily be dubbed Make the Daimyo Broke Tour. As you reflect on these historical intricacies, consider the delicate balance of power and the myriad challenges faced by those in authority. Would you have thrived in such a tumultuous environment? Imagine the life of a daimyo, responsible for two households, one in their own territory and another in Edipo. They traverse the country with grand entourages, a display of loyalty that feels equal parts political theater, financial strain, and exhausting exercise. Picture walking 100 miles with thousands of retainers, all just to receive a nod from the shogun, saying, "Well done, let's hope you don't rebel this year." Their responsibilities extend beyond mere appearances. Daimyo are entangled in clan politics, orchestrating marriages, navigating succession crises, settling border disputes, addressing temple complaints, and dealing with merchants who often possess more wealth than they do. At any moment, a daimyo could find themselves just 5 bad harvests away from becoming a ronin, albeit in finer attire. So, contrary to the image of anime villains perched on thrones of absolute power, daimyo are weary administrators striving to keep their clan, their land, and their sanity intact. While samurai engage in battles, daimyo grapple with bureaucracy, and truthfully, that bureaucracy can be far more daunting. When you think of a Japanese monk, perhaps you envision a serene figure meditating beneath a waterfall, imparting wisdom to those who pass by, gently promoting inner peace. They drift through our imaginations like living fortune cookies, sharing insights in haiku, their voices barely rising above a whisper. History unfolds with a curious sense of irony. While some monks genuinely dedicate their lives to meditation and the pursuit of enlightenment, many others, particularly in medieval Japan, embody a different narrative. These monks, known as the Sohi, resemble lightly armed landlords more than peaceful spiritual guides. They wielded weapons, donned armor, commanded private armies, and displayed an undeniable intensity. Imagine, if you will, 1,000 of these monks descending a mountain, naginata in hand, chanting sutras as they prepared to resolve theological disputes with fire and steel. The image of serene monks fades when you recognize that entire temples operated as feudal powerhouses. These temples owned land, collected taxes, amassed wealth, and vied for influence with an energy akin to that of a caffeine-fueled competition. The boundary between spiritual leadership and military might was often as delicate as a parchment scroll. When a temple sought political influence, it didn't send diplomats to negotiate. Instead, it dispatched monks into the capital, brandishing sacred symbols that, perhaps for reasons both unclear and remarkable, often incited riots. Can you feel the tension in the air as these spiritual warriors marched forward, challenging the status quo? The court acknowledged the actions of the monks, not out of admiration, but because these monks were armed, organized, and quite at ease with causing property damage. Rival temples clashed with each other in intense battles, using fire and siege warfare, displaying an enthusiasm that suggested enlightenment could indeed be achieved through destruction. Even the more peaceful sects sometimes fell short of their ideals. A monk might begin his day by copying sacred texts, but spend his afternoon confronting a bandit who ventured too close. Another monk could preach compassion, yet demand fees for battlefield blessings. Spirituality often came with a price, and temples had their own expenses to cover. Despite the chaos surrounding them, monks played a vital role in society. They preserved knowledge, influenced political landscapes, educated the elite, and contributed significantly to Japanese philosophy. They were scholars, diplomats, healers, and at times, unfortunately, agents of destruction. So it's clear that monks were not merely gentle sages, detached from worldly matters. They were multifaceted, powerful individuals, deeply entwined in the complexities of Japan's feudal era. In essence, some monks pursued enlightenment, others sought peace, some engaged in battle, and a few aimed to achieve all three. The typical image of the Japanese farmer as a gentle soul may not fully capture the diverse realities of this era. Imagine a humble peasant greeting the sunrise with gratitude, planting rice in tranquil silence. He smiles warmly at the earth, embodying a sense of peace that seems untouched by the weight of the world. In films, farmers often serve as mere background figures, offering moral lessons or delivering tearful speeches about the simplicity of life. But reality tells a very different story. Being a farmer in feudal Japan was no easy feat. The challenges they faced were so immense that even modern individuals might consider filing lawsuits just for reading about them. These were not serene Zen gardeners. They were endurance athletes caught in an endless cycle of agricultural hardship. From dawn until dawn again, farmers toiled planting, harvesting, mending tools, tending to their own injuries, and praying that the weather would spare them once more. Let's not forget about taxes, a topic that samurai certainly made their business. Farmers were taxed in rice, not in currency or favors, but in the very crop that sustained them. This meant that their livelihood could vanish the moment it was harvested. Samurai would arrive in the villages, demanding their share, which often translated to taking all the rice they desired, along with whatever the farmers had hoped to store for the winter. If farmers appear calm in artwork, it's likely because the artist lacked the ink to capture their emotional turmoil. Their lives were filled with struggles that went far beyond what could be illustrated. Imagine a world where farmers are seen as the backbone of society, but the truth is often different. They receive the same kind of respect as a hard-working horse, crucial yet frequently overburdened. Each year, these farmers risk everything, relying on forces beyond their control. They face floods, droughts, pests, typhoons, rice blight, bandits, heavy taxation, fires, and the chaos of war. Occasionally, they must contend with samurai, who can be as destructive as a wrecking ball. Just one bad harvest could lead to starvation. A single political shift could mean higher taxes. Even a mere patrol from samurai could force them to hide their food, fearing it might vanish without a trace. Despite these challenges, farmers are the ones who keep everything running smoothly. They construct irrigation systems, rotate their crops, sustain their villages, raise families, and even organize festivals they can't afford. When called upon, they are ready to support their lords in battle, yet they rarely find rest. If a medieval Japanese farmer ever experienced a moment of true peace, he might have thought he was dead. So no, they weren't serene villagers leading harmonious lives. They were the exhausted, resilient, and often unrecognized heroes of feudal Japan, carrying the weight of the nation while others debated honor. Life for Japan's feudal merchants is often misunderstood. You might picture them as shady figures lurking in dark alleys, whispering about deals, much like medieval used car salesmen. Movies often depict them as greedy and cunning, socially inferior to the samurai. In this portrayal, they are the kind of people samurai would only associate with when taxes were due or when someone needed a scapegoat for inflation. Yet, reality tells a different story. Merchants, despite their lowly rank in the social hierarchy below samurai, farmers, and artisans, were the embodiment of irony. Officially, they were considered unproductive, merely moving goods around like glorified delivery personnel. Farmers were seen as essential for growing food, artisans for crafting tools, and samurai for enforcing laws. However, while samurai wrote poetry about honor and farmers toiled endlessly, merchants were quietly laying the groundwork for capitalism. By the Edo period, they had amassed considerable wealth. They operated extensive trade networks, controlled credit, financed construction projects, influenced fashion trends, owned entertainment districts, supported theatrical productions, and even bribed officials. In doing so, they played a crucial role in shaping national culture and taste. As you reflect on this dynamic, consider how perceptions can shift. What stories are hidden beneath the surface of history? Imagine a time when merchants resembled medieval bankers, adorned in elegant kimonos. The image of the greedy merchant often arose from the envy of samurai, who received fixed stipends in rice amounts that fell short of meeting the rising cost of living. Meanwhile, merchants thrived in a world of cash flow and interest rates. Samurai held honor, while merchants wielded wealth. Can you guess who managed to pay the rent? To navigate their circumstances, merchants adopted a facade of humility. Displaying wealth could invite trouble, so they became masters of subtlety. Their homes appeared modest from the outside, but inside they housed luxurious interiors, hidden from the public eye. They wore no flashy jewelry, yet they stored vast quantities of silk, sake, and art in warehouses for business purposes. Though they lacked political power, they wielded influence through the money they lent to politicians. While samurai often looked down on merchants, they frequently found themselves borrowing from them, sometimes out of desperation, sometimes with a sense of urgency. Many samurai households managed to survive thanks to the generosity or opportunism of lowly merchants who extended credit. Moreover, merchants played a pivotal role in shaping culture. They popularized kabuki, introduced new fashion trends, and funded vibrant entertainment districts like Yoshiwara. After all, whoever controls the nightlife holds the reins of society. Merchants in ancient Japan were indeed clever and wealthy, but their greed was often misunderstood. It stemmed from a simple desire to enjoy food and avoid starvation. While samurai held power on paper, it was the merchants who wielded influence in practice, and everyone recognized this, particularly the merchants themselves. The image of the Japanese swordmaster is almost mythical. Popular culture portrays them as wise, ancient figures, embodying a mysterious aura with perfect posture and a whisper-quiet voice. They are often depicted as effortlessly slicing through falling leaves, defeating multiple attackers without breaking a sweat, and speaking in poetic haikus that sound like lines from a fortune cookie. However, the reality is quite different. Imagine a tired, underpaid instructor trying to teach swordsmanship to teenagers who would rather be anywhere else. Let's address the most common myth, the notion that sword masters could slice through stone pillars or iron armor. In truth, these masters did not perform supernatural feats. If a student were to inquire about cutting through steel, the master would likely respond with a wry, "With another piece of steel, my friend," before sending them off to sweep the dojo. The dojo was not a mystical sanctuary. It resembled a bustling martial arts school filled with constant noise, peculiar smells, and students wielding wooden swords as if they were swatting at flies. It was a far cry from the dramatic portrayals often seen in movies. Imagine a day in the life of a sword master. It often revolves around correcting poor footwork, ensuring students don't injure one another, and explaining for what feels like the 100th time that yelling louder won't sharpen a sword. The romanticized vision depicts sword masters training heroes, but the truth is quite different. They teach anyone willing to pay, from farmers and low-ranking samurai to merchants, children, and even bored adolescents looking for trouble. In reality, becoming a sword master is less about fate and more about tuition fees. Were there legendary sword masters? Certainly. Figures like Miyamoto Musashi gained fame through victories and philosophical writings. Yet, even Musashi didn't spend his days slicing through boulders. Much of his life was devoted to teaching, wandering, and evading responsibilities, occasionally using a wooden sword to instill discipline in his students. And let's not forget the politics of swordsmanship. Rival schools would engage in challenges, sabotage one another, and sometimes even clash in the streets over claims of superior footwork styles. Picture martial artists squabbling online, but with real swords and a much higher risk of losing a limb. While sword masters possessed wisdom, it wasn't always about magical incantations. Instead, it was grounded in practical experience and the realities of their craft. Imagine receiving advice that simply says, "Stop fighting like an angry chicken." It captures a certain truth, doesn't it? In reality, sword masters are not mystical warriors perched atop mountains. They are skilled professionals who navigate egos, injuries, finances, dojo drama, and students with the reflexes of sleepy turtles. While the myth is captivating, the reality is often educational, and neither involves slicing through a boulder. The stereotype of the female samurai, or honorbuga, is pure cinematic gold. Picture a fierce warrior woman effortlessly cutting through armies, her eyeliner flawless, and her hair flowing behind her like something out of a shampoo commercial. Modern portrayals depict her as a one-woman army, casually defeating entire clans while delivering feminist monologues in perfect slow motion. But reality offers a different perspective. Yes, women warriors did exist in Japan, but they weren't running around like unstoppable anime heroines, vanquishing 50 foes before breakfast. And no, they certainly didn't fight in glamorous armor designed to accentuate their cheekbones. Most honorabaya were upper-class women trained to defend their households, while their husbands, fathers, and male relatives ventured off to battle, often taking the village defense force with them. As you reflect on these truths, consider how they reshape your understanding of history and the roles women played within it. Would you like to explore more about these remarkable figures? Imagine a time when female warriors took up arms, not out of choice, but for survival. The stakes were high, facing death, watching their homes burn, or both. Movies often highlight the naginata, a long polearm traditionally associated with women. This portrayal leans into stereotypes, suggesting that it was chosen for its elegance and grace. Yet, in reality, this weapon allowed women to fend off invaders from a safe distance. After all, what could be more equal than facing an intruder with a 6-foot blade? Consider the legendary female warriors of history. Take Tamo Gozen, often regarded as the Beyoncé of medieval Japan. She fought valiantly in the Genpei War, described as strong, beautiful, and terrifying, the ultimate trifecta of compliments. Then there's Nanao Teo, who led women into battle during the Boshin War, embodying the timeless message of self-empowerment, "Don't mess with me." However, these women were exceptions rather than the norm. Hollywood might paint a picture of entire armies of female samurai charging into battle like an ancient feminist flash mob. And the truth is, most women who fought did so during times of crisis, sieges, rebellions, last stands, or those heart-stopping moments when samurai approached their gates. As peace settled in the Edo period, the focus of women's martial training shifted from necessity to cultural tradition. It became less about survival and more about preserving a legacy. Reflect on how this evolution mirrors the resilience and strength of women throughout history. The naginata emerges as a symbol of moral integrity, physical discipline, and a means to resolve conflicts decisively. Female samurai were not mere fantasy figures draped in silk. They were skilled, resilient women committed to defending their homes, families, and honor. While the men often debated honor from a distance, these women took action when it mattered most. They were not mythical beings or glamorous icons. They were real warriors engaged in real struggles when necessary. Modern pop culture romanticizes the Yakuza, depicting them as sharp-dressed figures adorned with intricate tattoos, embodying samurai-like discipline and a code of ethics more rigorous than many people's daily routines. They are often portrayed as noble criminals and misunderstood outlaws of Japan's underworld. However, the reality during the Edo period was quite different. The Yakuza were initially composed of petty criminals grappling with gambling addictions and lacking basic hygiene. Before the modern Yakuza took shape, Japan was home to two primary criminal factions, tea peddlers and bakuto gamblers. When you combine these elements, squint a bit, and factor in 3 centuries of romanticized storytelling, you get the prototype of the Yakuza. Yet, in their earliest days, these individuals were far from glamorous. They resembled someone angrily shouting at a stray dog behind a sake shop. As you reflect on these narratives, consider the truth behind the legends and the real lives that shaped them. Would you like to delve deeper into this captivating history? Let's delve into the world of tea and the so-called traveling merchants. It sounds noble, doesn't it? These merchants sold their wares at festivals, markets, and roadside stands. Half the time, they operated within the law. The other half, well, they preferred not to ask too many questions. They carved out territories for themselves, collected protection money, and occasionally enlisted muscle. Reading ancient codes of honor was not on their agenda, especially when it came to overcharging farmers for simple wooden toys. Now, let's turn our attention to the bakuto, the gamblers of this realm. These men lived in humble roadside huts, running makeshift casinos that catered to bored or intoxicated travelers. They employed dice, cards, and clever calculations to ensure that somehow fate always favored the house. If someone happened to win too much, the bakuto would suddenly need to have a private conversation outside, where the odds of survival shifted dramatically. These individuals were not the suave anti-heroes of legend. Many were desperate souls, scraping by on the fringes of society, caught in a cycle of poverty and violence, looking for whatever shady job would keep their sake flowing. Their tattoos, now seen as iconic, originally served as markers of criminality rather than as expressions of art. Back then, full-body ink was more a warning, "Please do not hire me, I'm committed to poor choices," than a fashion statement. They were not held in high regard. Samurai looked down on them, while merchants tolerated their presence. As you reflect on this, consider the complexities of their lives. What drives a person to such extremes? Villagers held a deep-seated fear of them. Even among the Bakuto, mistrust ran high, which is quite remarkable considering they shared the same line of work. The archetype of the honorable gangster was yet to emerge. There were no oaths of loyalty, no strict hierarchies, and certainly no dramatic sword fights in the rain. The early figures of the underworld primarily relied on knives, fists, and whatever objects they could find before security intervened. Yet, here's the intriguing part. Despite the chaos, danger, and constant financial struggles, these early gangs laid the groundwork for what we now recognize as the modern Yakuza. They established the hierarchy, the rituals, and the territorial systems. Over time, their reputation blossomed, their myths expanded, and their style transformed. However, during the Edo period, they were simply viewed as criminals, more adept at branding than the typical bandit. There were no neon lights, no codes of honor, and no loyalty, only dice, debt, and desperation. If there's one stereotype that persists even more than the notions of samurai honor or ninja magic, it's the belief that feudal Japan was a land of peace and minimalist elegance. It's imagined as a place where everyone embraced Zen, gardens tended themselves, tea ceremonies alleviated stress, and no one ever raised their voice except to praise the cherry blossoms. In contemporary imagination, medieval Japan resembles a 600-year-long wellness retreat. As you step through those sliding paper doors, reality rushes in, much like an unexpected visitor. Let's explore the myth of aesthetics in Japan. It's true that Japan has given the world stunning art, exquisite tea ceremonies, delicate poetry, and architectural marvels that continue to inspire. However, this is just part of the story, the highlight reel. Behind every serene Zen garden, there were countless muddy villages, numerous burning storehouses, and one castle that has been under repair for decades. The daimyo often prioritized lavish helmet decorations over essential construction materials, leading to a stark contrast between expectation and reality. People often envision clean streets, polite citizens, and perfect order. Yet, actual medieval Japanese cities were anything but orderly. They were crowded, flammable, noisy, and filled with unpleasant odors, much like a chaotic gathering of startled raccoons. Fires broke out so frequently that some neighborhoods came to regard them as seasonal occurrences, akin to the blooming of cherry blossoms, but significantly more destructive. Then consider the notion of national harmony. It's said that everyone adhered to strict social roles, honored traditions, and obeyed authority. In truth, feudal Japan resembled an attempt to organize chaos with origami and duct tape. Samurai clashed with samurai, monks battled monks, daimyo rose against the shogun, and peasants revolted against oppressive taxes. As you reflect on these contrasts, perhaps you can see how the beauty of a culture often coexists with its struggles. Merchants shaped the economy in ways that often went unnoticed. Every few decades, a bold declaration of war would emerge, driven by ambition rather than necessity. The common belief is that everyone led simple spiritual lives, a notion that is both charming and misguided. Peasants faced daily struggles for survival. Samurai grappled with the challenge of securing their pay. Daimyo fought to maintain their lives and status, while monks battled the temptation to set rival temples ablaze. Merchants were constantly trying to conceal their wealth from envious samurai, and ninjas worked tirelessly to avoid capture while engaging in activities deemed forbidden. Nature, too, seemed intent on complicating matters. Japan experienced earthquakes, floods, typhoons, tsunamis, landslides, volcanic eruptions, and the occasional famine, all adding to a landscape of turmoil. If you believe that medieval Japan was a place of peace, you may have overlooked the chaos of a village struggling to harvest rice during monsoon season. Yet, amidst this disorder, this muddy, fiery, and politically unstable existence, an extraordinary culture, rich philosophy, and profound beauty emerged. However, this beauty was not a constant. It was forged through hardship, refined through struggle, and preserved by those who had little time for the simplistic stereotypes crafted long after their time. So feudal Japan was far from a tranquil paradise. It was, in fact, beautifully messy. It is a brutal scene, yet stunning and undeniably human. This raw reality often surpasses the myths we create. You awaken before the sun rises, not out of discipline or enlightenment, but because medieval Paris has no intention of letting anyone sleep past dawn. The city rouses you like a marching band, jolting a drunken nobleman, loudly, unapologetically, and with a clear aim to disrupt any dreams you may have been having. Before the bells of Notre Dame begin their melodic duties, the streets come alive with the clatter of carts, the snorting of horses, and vendors warming up their voices as if preparing for an opera titled Buy My Vegetables or Else. As you step into the alleyway, the city envelops you. The houses lean inward at angles that defy both physics and good taste, forming walls of timber and plaster so close that you could easily pass a loaf of bread to someone across the street without even stretching. Yet, you refrain, not out of selfishness, but because there's always a chance they might just dump a chamber pot from the window. In Paris, looking up becomes an extreme sport. Then the smells assault your senses, a merciless cocktail of aromas. The scent of fresh bread wafts from the baker's oven, inviting you to step deeper into this vibrant world. The smoke curls up from charcoal braziers, mingling with the sizzling sound of onions frying just a couple of streets away. Underneath it all lies the city's unmistakable scent, a blend of life and grit. Sewage trickles through the central gutter like a small determined river, fulfilling its purpose. These competing aromas come together to create a fragrance that feels like an echo of medieval Paris. Students from the University of Paris shuffle by in wrinkled robes, casually quoting Aristotle as if it were the latest gossip. They clutch books that stretch their budgets and engage in passionate debates in Latin, a language that seems to linger longer than it should. Their demeanor reflects the self-assured weariness of those who haven't slept in days. Beggars have already claimed their usual spots, bowls at the ready, their eyes sharp and watchful. They know that the morning rush is the ideal time to appeal to the guilt of passers-by, fresh before breakfast. Shopkeepers are gearing up for the day ahead. The butcher sharpens his cleaver, producing a sound filled with confidence. Meanwhile, the fishmonger arranges his catch, insisting on its freshness while avoiding direct eye contact. The spice seller meticulously constructs small pyramids of saffron and pepper, each one more valuable than gold. And the noise, Paris never whispers. Metal clinks, hooves echo on cobbled streets, dogs bark, and children dart around with unrestrained energy. The entire city announces itself, vibrant and alive, long before the sun makes its entrance. Imagine the dawn breaking over medieval Paris. The air is alive with noise and energy, creating an unforgettable atmosphere. As the city awakens, the marketplace known as Lille bursts into action. When you arrive, the square is already teeming with more people than seems possible. It feels less like a market and more like a battlefield, where everyone is armed with baskets, sharp elbows, and an unshakable confidence. If you hesitate for even a moment, you might find that a determined grandmother has already zipped past you, claimed your spot, and assessed your choice of footwear. Stalls stretch out in a labyrinth of colorful cloth canopies and wooden tables, each one vying for your attention. Produce sellers display their goods in precarious pyramids that seem to defy gravity. Apples, onions, and cabbages piled high enough to rival any architectural marvel. The vegetable vendors, renowned for their powerful voices, shout deals that echo louder than church bells. They don't merely offer prices, they launch them at you with fervor. Then there's the butcher's corner, a realm of its own. Carcasses hang from hooks like medieval ornaments, their presence stark against the blood-stained wooden boards below. The butchers, rugged and robust, seem as if they were chiseled from the same material as their cleavers, ready for the day's demands. In this vibrant scene, every corner holds a story, and every face has a purpose. So, take a moment to absorb the sights, sounds, and scents of this bustling marketplace. What do you notice as you navigate through this vivid tapestry of life? Imagine a bustling marketplace, vibrant and alive, where the air is thick with a mix of scents and sounds. You find yourself in a place where the atmosphere is both exhilarating and a little daunting. The fishmongers stand firm against the overwhelming aroma of river-borne regret. They offer fish displayed on beds of straw, each glistening with a shine that speaks of their fleeting freshness. The sellers assure you they caught these fish just this morning, a claim that may be true, though perhaps it's not the part of the morning you would prefer to hear. As you move through the market, the spice merchants draw your attention. Their stalls burst with color, showcasing bright saffron, rich cinnamon, and crushed pepper so precious it feels like a form of currency. They whisper the prices, not out of courtesy, but out of necessity. The value of spices is high, and they must guard against thieves and the curious children who might inadvertently cause a ruckus. The scene is completed by weavers, woodworkers, basket makers, and tinkers, each offering a variety of goods. From sturdy boots to pots that rattle suspiciously, there's something for everyone. Students meander through, their pockets empty, yet their eyes filled with hope, while beggars watch like wolves, keenly aware of any signs of vulnerability. The sounds around you create a chaotic symphony, bargaining voices, laughter, the clatter of metal, and the occasional dogfight over a bone. Merchants argue passionately, each claiming their goods are the freshest or their morals the least questionable. In this vibrant tapestry, you feel the pulse of life, a blend of hope, desperation, and the everyday hustle that defines this marketplace. As you absorb it all, you might wonder what stories are hidden behind each stall, waiting to be discovered. Imagine stepping into the vibrant marketplace of medieval Paris. It's loud and sprawling, a beautiful chaos that pulses at the heart of the city. If the marketplace represents Paris's heart, then its streets serve as the lifeblood, vast and unpredictable, sometimes even clogged with trouble. As you leave Le Hall and venture deeper into this urban maze, you encounter the true masters of the streets. Here, beggars, hustlers, and self-appointed entrepreneurs navigate life with an unspoken code, cleverly taking your money without any need for paperwork. These beggars occupy strategic positions, much like seasoned commanders. They know the corners that yield the most coins, the church doors that attract the kind-hearted, and the taverns where drunk nobles might part with their money out of guilt or poor judgment. Some of these beggars are theatrical, employing dramatic flair. They might fake a limp or deliver monologues that would rival those of the finest Parisian actors. Others rely on sheer volume, reminding you of their presence with persistence akin to a medieval alarm clock should you forget to offer a coin. And then there are the children, mostly orphans. They move in clever packs, darting through the crowd with the agility of determined little foxes. With quick hands, they might snatch a loaf of bread from a distracted baker or lift a coin pouch from a belt before you even notice the shift. As you take in this bustling scene, consider how these lives intersect in the heart of the city. Are you ready to explore more of this vibrant world? Imagine for a moment that you've just caught something remarkable. Congratulations, but as you celebrate, you realize the rest of the pack has already snatched away something else. Not everyone you encounter on the street is desperate. Some simply operate in the shadows. Take the nightmen, for example. They collect the city's waste and charge for their services, moving with a confidence that suggests they know their job is unwanted, yet essential. On street corners, you find carriers, porters, and day laborers, forming clusters of men who could easily construct a cathedral before lunch if only someone would pay them. Then there are the gangs, loose groups of young men who swagger through the streets, claiming informal territories. They aren't outright criminals, but they certainly don't have any awards for good behavior. Mostly they drink, hurl insults at university students, and occasionally engage in brawls for amusement. Their presence adds a certain flavor to the city, one that makes you pick up your pace. Yet beneath it all lies a constant tension, as if at any moment chaos could erupt. A cart might tip over, a basket could spill, or a misunderstanding about an insult could spark a confrontation. Paris exists on the edge of delightful disorder. In this vibrant landscape, survival isn't simply about strength. It's about navigating the intricate dance of life in the streets. Let's take a moment to immerse ourselves in this vibrant scene. As you walk with confidence, remember to keep your pouch securely tied. Head toward the left bank and notice how the atmosphere begins to transform. The scents become less overwhelming, and the shouts around you turn into articulate conversations. Suddenly, Latin phrases float through the air, reminiscent of confetti at a grand celebration. You find yourself at the University of Paris, a hub of intellectual fervor in medieval Europe and a lively center for spirited academic debates. Students bustle about, donning long robes that evoke images of wizard apprentices who opted for philosophy over magic. They hail from England, Italy, Germany, and Spain, each one acting as if Paris is theirs to claim. These young scholars exude an air of confidence, engaging in passionate discussions in the streets, taverns, and on bridges, anywhere they can find a moment to express their ideas, often to the dismay of unwilling bystanders. Debating theology at hours when most people are seeking rest. When their arguments fail to resonate, they sometimes resort to starting altercations with the local Parisians, who affectionately refer to them as Gaulards, poetic, wine-loving troublemakers. Lectures unfold in cramped rooms, filled with the scents of candle wax, chalk dust, and unyielding ambition. This is a world where ideas clash and creativity flourishes, inviting you to explore the depths of knowledge and the passion that fuels it. Would you like to delve deeper into this fascinating environment, or take a moment to reflect? Imagine a scene where professors, bound to their desks by heavy tomes, read aloud while students diligently scribble notes on wax tablets, striving to capture every word as if Aristotle himself were imparting wisdom. A single lecture stretches on for hours, and missing one feels like a significant loss. Attending, while a privilege, isn't free from its own set of challenges. Life as a student is an adventure of its own. Crowded into rented rooms above taverns, bakeries, and establishments of questionable reputation, privacy feels like a distant dream. Hygiene? That's often left to personal interpretation. Complaints echo through the halls as you wander near these student lodgings, where you might overhear spirited debates raucous laughter, and occasionally the sound of someone regretting their wine choices, with the aftermath spilling from a window. Yet, amidst this delightful chaos, the university stands as a beacon for dreamers. Here, knowledge is power, and for many, education represents a path to a brighter future, one that offers status, influence, and perhaps a vocation that doesn't involve manual labor or fish guts. However, this pursuit of knowledge isn't without its conflicts. Students frequently find themselves at odds with city authorities over curfews, taxes, and the expectations of civilized behavior. The university staunchly defends their rights, leading to moments of tension that can erupt into dramatic confrontations known as town and gown riots. Consider how this vibrant tapestry of life shapes the student's journey. What dreams do you hold tightly as you navigate your own path? Imagine a scene from a medieval campus protest, but with swords in hand. In Paris, scholarship and chaos intertwine seamlessly, creating a unique rhythm to daily life. As the morning transitions into midday, the bustling world of medieval Paris comes alive. Craftsmen fill the streets, moving like the cogs of a grand, noisy machine. If you listen closely to the clang of metal, you'll discover the blacksmiths at work. With shirt sleeves rolled up and faces smudged with soot, they hammer iron with an intensity that suggests they pour their emotions into every strike. Sparks dance in the air as customers shout above the din, while apprentices dash about, collecting tools before their masters lose patience and start tossing them aside. Just down the street, cobblers labor in cramped shops filled with the rich scents of leather and glue. Shoes line the walls in orderly rows, though most Parisians can't afford anything extravagant. Yet cobblers remain busy, for medieval footwear tends to wear out faster than one's patience during a lengthy sermon. The bakers rise before the sun, and by noon, their shops transform into veritable temples of temptation. Loaves of warm bread are stacked high in baskets, resembling edible trophies. The air is thick with the delightful aromas of yeast and flour, drawing eager customers to gather around the door even before the opening bell rings. Take a moment to envision this vibrant tapestry of medieval life, where every sound and scent tells a story. Wouldn't you want to step into this world, even if just for a moment? Imagine the bakers, those local celebrities, navigating a world filled with constant feedback. They hear complaints about everything, from the prices they set to the thickness of their crusts. And let's not forget the whispers about yesterday's batch, deemed somehow less divine. Now, picture the weavers. Their shops resonate with the sounds of spindles and looms, creating a rhythm that feels almost meditative. They work with a focus that blends artistry with a hint of anxiety. After all, one misstep could ruin a week's worth of effort and trigger a public display of frustration. In this vibrant landscape, every trade is part of a guild, a network that operates with the meticulousness of a medieval organization, though with far better documentation. These guilds dictate prices, oversee apprenticeships, and conduct inspections of workshops. Occasionally, friendly rivalries can turn into raucous tavern brawls, reminding everyone that competition can be fierce. Being without a guild is nearly unthinkable. It's social suicide. Membership offers both protection and responsibility. They control what you sell, how you sell it, and even the number of apprentices you can mentor or perhaps admonish each day. Carpenters, coopers, stonemasons, chandlers, and rope makers all contribute to the city's lively atmosphere. The streets transform into workshops, the alleys into storage spaces, and the air is filled with the sounds of labor, hammering, scraping, shouting, and the occasional exclamation of, "Who took my tools?" In this bustling city, the craftspeople of Paris sustain its very heartbeat. Every object, every shoe, tool, candle, barrel, cloak, bowl, and beam is crafted by hands that have endured years of training. Here, work transcends mere survival. It becomes a part of identity. It shapes the city as surely as stone shapes a grand cathedral. As the sun begins to dip behind the rooftops of Paris, the city doesn't fall silent. Instead, it changes its costume. The daytime bustle of merchants and craftsmen gives way to the lively heartbeat of taverns and alehouses that come alive for the night. In this vibrant evening atmosphere, drinkers, gamblers, and gossipers emerge, many of whom really should be at home but have chosen to embrace the night instead. The sounds of laughter and spirited arguments spill into the alleys, creating a symphony of life that you can hear before you see. Mugs crash onto wooden tables, and the unmistakable medieval sound of someone insisting they're sober while proving the opposite fills the air. Inside smoky rooms, candles flicker, illuminating a mix of students, sailors, craftsmen, travelers, and the occasional nobleman trying to blend in, hoping not to be recognized. Here, ale flows freely, wine is served with a hint of skepticism, and the food, it's always a gamble. A stew could either be a delightful surprise or a mildly threatening mystery. So, as you wander through this lively tapestry of nightlife, what stories will you uncover? Imagine walking into a tavern where the smell of warm, fresh bread mingles with the lively atmosphere. It's not about the culinary excellence, it's about the vibrant chaos that envelops you. The tavern keepers reign over their domains like kings, deciding who gets served first and who needs to be shown the door. Their assistants dart between tables, expertly balancing oversized mugs, skillfully avoiding grasping hands and slurred compliments. When someone begins to sing, half the room joins in, creating a chorus that fills the air. If a fight breaks out, the other half is quick to join the fray. In the corners, gamblers huddle, rolling dice with a fervor that resembles a sacred ritual. You can hear the clinking of coins and the sharp exchange of threats. Someone inevitably claims the dice are cursed, while another jokingly threatens to bless them with a brick. From your vantage point, you observe, pretending to be too wise to join in, even though a part of you yearns to take a gamble. Outside, the alehouses provide a slightly quieter experience, yet still steeped in questionable charm. Here, drinkers gather around barrels, discussing politics they barely grasp, criticizing a king they will never meet, and boasting of achievements that likely never occurred. Take a moment to reflect on this scene. What draws you in? Imagine standing in the heart of Paris, where glowing windows cast a warm light on the cobblestone streets. Laughter echoes through the air, and distant bells chime, creating a symphony that defines a city that never sleeps. Nighttime in medieval Paris is not serene or polished. Instead, it bursts with life, loud, chaotic, and wonderfully unpredictable. You might picture medieval Paris as charming, but have you considered its approach to hygiene? By day, the streets are teeming with people and noise. As evening falls, it becomes evident that Paris is engaged in a relentless battle against cleanliness, and it's winning. The streets follow a simple rule: everything flows downhill, quite literally. A central gutter, grimy and shallow, runs through most of the thoroughfares, collecting whatever the city discards: water, mud, stray vegetables, animal droppings, and even mysterious liquids of dubious origin all find their way here, along with the infamous contents of chamber pots. When someone shouts "guard alow," it's a call to action. Move quickly or risk becoming part of the city's drainage system. The air is filled with a unique aroma, bold and unapologetic. Smoke from countless hearths mingles with the scent of sewage, fish guts from the local markets, and tallow from candle makers. Add in the spices from nearby kitchens, all attempting to mask the less pleasant odors, and you have a sensory experience that is distinctly Parisian. Take a moment to reflect on this vivid tapestry of sounds and smells. Paris is alive, and in its very chaos, it tells a story unlike any other. Would you like to continue exploring this fascinating city? Imagine an aroma that clings to your clothes, your hair, and even your spirit. Visitors might describe it as unique, while locals simply refer to it as Tuesday. At night, the nightmen take to the streets, brave souls tasked with collecting human waste and transporting it beyond the city's walls. They navigate the dark alleys, pushing their carts with a sense of defiance, their expressions daring anyone to voice a complaint. Their work is essential, yet society regards them like a distant thunderstorm, appreciated but approached with a mix of gratitude and unease. Animals contribute to this tapestry of urban life as well. Pigs roam freely, indulging in whatever the gutters offer. Dogs stroll through the streets, appearing mildly offended by the world around them. Horses leave behind their own reminders, quickly crushed into the cobblestones by the bustling morning crowd. While the church advocates for bathing, the harsh realities of weather, expense, and the medieval belief that warm water might be harmful often deter people from following this advice. Public bathhouses exist, yet their reputation varies widely. Some see them as vibrant social hubs, while others view them with suspicion. Most individuals find themselves content with washing just their hands, faces, and any part of their body that itches, navigating their lives amidst this complex blend of aromas and experiences. In medieval Paris, life unfolds in a dance of survival and resilience. Parisians adapt, their instincts sharpen, and humor becomes a lifeline. Hygiene is not a luxury, it's a daily negotiation with fate. The city glimmers with vibrant markets, bustling students, skilled craftsmen, and the warm glow of tavern lights. Yet beneath this lively facade lies a shared truth. Paris is a playground for trouble. Crime is not an anomaly, it's woven into the fabric of daily life, much like fresh bread, lively gossip, or the mysterious odors wafting from unknown sources. As you walk through the streets, you come to terms with a haunting reality. At any moment, someone might be scheming to steal your purse, your chicken, or even your dignity. Thieves lurk around every corner, and skilled pickpockets navigate the busy thoroughfares with the finesse of a seasoned musician, deftly slipping their hands into unsuspecting pouches. They target travelers, tipsy students, and anyone distracted by the magnificent cathedral, leaving their belongings unguarded. If you dare confront a thief, expect them to vanish into an alley so narrow that even the air seems reluctant to follow. And then there are the burglars, the nocturnal prowlers, who prefer the rooftops, chimneys, and unlocked shutters, thriving in the kind of darkness that only a medieval city can offer. Some might label them criminals, but in this vibrant, chaotic world, they are simply part of the intricate tapestry of life. Some people label them as ambitious, but in reality, they are simply part of the urban ecosystem, much like fishmongers or stray dogs, albeit with a bit more drive. The city maintains patrols. Watchmen traverse the streets, armed with lanterns and wooden staves, exuding the quiet confidence of those who are aware that most criminals can outrun them. Their task seems straightforward: to maintain peace. Yet, in practice, this peace is often upheld by issuing shoutouts, breaking up bar brawls, and gently urging people to head home. Their nightly calls, announcing the hour and the watch, resonate through the darkness, serving as a reminder that law and order technically exist, even if they often feel more ornamental than effective. When justice is served, it tends to be quite theatrical. Punishments unfold in public view because nothing instills morality quite like witnessing the consequences of someone else's poor choices become fodder for tomorrow's gossip. Thieves may face whippings, be placed in the stocks, or parade through the streets displaying signs detailing their misdeeds. More serious crimes lead to grimmer fates, often involving executioners who approach their duties with unsettling seriousness. Yet, crime is not solely the domain of nefarious villains. Sometimes it arises from the struggles of hungry citizens stealing bread, desperate families gathering firewood, or university students borrowing wine with every intention of returning it. The line between criminal and victim is incredibly thin, almost as delicate as the walls of an average Parisian home. Yet, amidst the chaos, the city thrives. People adapt in various ways. Some become sharper, others quicker, and some simply pray harder. Each sunrise in medieval Paris underscores the resilience of its inhabitants, who navigate their tumultuous world with remarkable enthusiasm. In this vibrant city, law and order coexist, though not always in that sequence. Despite the filth, the clamor, and the ever-watchful rats, medieval Paris knows how to celebrate. When festivals arrive, the city transforms from a hectic hub of daily survival into a lively carnival filled with sound, color, and perhaps questionable choices. It's a time when Parisians momentarily forget the grime, the taxes, the thieves, and the fact that their shoes have rarely been dry. Religious feast days dominate the calendar, and the people of Paris take them seriously. These occasions provide the perfect excuse for indulgence, eating, drinking, and temporarily casting aside their responsibilities. The bells ring so loudly that you can feel them in your bones. Parades wind through the streets, carrying heavy statues of saints that require half the neighborhood to lift. Priests chant, children dash about, and dogs bark at everything in sight. The air is alive with the mingling scents of incense, roasting meat, and the unmistakable aroma of too many people gathered closely together. The Feast of Fools stands out as the city's beloved annual chaos generator. For one remarkable day, everything turns upside down. A mock king, often someone hilariously unqualified, perhaps a tipsy mason or a boisterous student, is crowned. People masks, dance with abandon, and engage in playful pranks with infectious enthusiasm. This day feels like the medieval world's version of a comedy night. Tournaments and fairs add their own excitement. Knights clad in shimmering armor clash in jousts that draw large crowds. Yet deep down, most spectators secretly wish for dramatic spills rather than elegant displays of skill. Vendors line the streets, offering everything from roasted nuts to miracle cures that won't really cure anything but might taste intriguing. Jugglers, acrobats, and musicians fill the streets, transforming Paris into a vibrant medieval talent show. And throughout it all, music reigns supreme. Flutes, drums, fiddles, and voices blend together, creating a living soundtrack that dances through the city. Even the grumpiest baker or the sternest guildmaster can't help but tap their foot or hum along. At the heart of this celebration lies faith. Grand churches brim with worshippers seeking forgiveness, guidance, or simply a warm place to rest. The soaring arches of the cathedral echo with hymns, momentarily drowning out the city's delightful chaos. As you immerse yourself in this vibrant scene, consider how joy and laughter can transform even the most ordinary day into something extraordinary. Wouldn't you agree? People often pray for health, good harvests, protection from illness, and sometimes even for their neighbors to stop tossing garbage out the window. Festivals in Paris unveil a truth that often lies hidden beneath the city's grime and noise. The city is alive, not just in its physical form, but in its spirit. Joy, faith, and celebration pulse through its streets, reminding everyone, rich or poor, that life in medieval Paris, despite its challenges, is undeniably vibrant. And with that, the streets fall quiet until dawn awakens them once more. Cesare Buia enters the world with a bang. Born in 1475 in Rome, he arrives at the heart of one of Europe's most notorious power families, the Borgias. From infancy, he is wrapped not in innocence, but in a tapestry of politics, ambition, and scandal that would leave most noble families in shock. His father, Rodrigo Buia, serves as a cardinal, while his mother, Vanza Dayton, is not his wife. This dynamic sets the tone for Cesare's entire life. Brilliant beginnings, grounded in morally flexible foundations, with a future shaped by bold defiance of expectations. The Buias, Spanish outsiders in Italy, rub against the egos of Rome's aristocracy. Yet Rodrigo, Cesare's father, navigates this landscape with charm, wealth, and a shrewdness that could outwit a fox. Rodrigo views children as assets, and among them, Cesare stands out. With his intelligence, charm, and striking presence, he is the most prized of all. From a young age, Cesare is groomed for power, whether he desires it or not. Rodrigo spares no expense, ensuring that he receives the finest education available. Latin, philosophy, law, diplomacy, military theory. Each subject shapes him into a formidable figure. Tutors describe him as fiercely intelligent, unnervingly calm, and strikingly self-assured. Even as a child, Cesare possesses a unique ability to read people and carries himself with a confidence that suggests he is destined for greatness beyond mere prayers and sermons. However, the church has its own plans for him, guided by Rodrigo's ambition. To bolster the family's influence, Cesare is relentlessly pushed toward a religious career, despite his lack of spiritual calling. His natural charisma aligns more with that of warriors and kings than with cardinals. Yet, he recognizes the importance of seizing opportunities. By his teenage years, titles and benefices accumulate faster than he can memorize the creed. But beneath the polished robes and church duties lies a brewing storm. Cesare's true nature craves action, risk, and danger, everything that starkly contrasts with the suffocating world of clerical politics. As you reflect on this, consider what it means to be shaped by others' ambitions. What paths might you choose when faced with expectations? Cesare Borgia feels an intense admiration for warriors and a deep envy for generals. He cannot bear the thought of spending his life merely whispering prayers while others seize real power. Those around him sense this discontent. He is not destined for the altar, he is destined for the battlefield. This internal struggle between the clerical path imposed on him and the warrior spirit he yearns to embrace will soon ignite a transformation that defines his life. Born into controversy, Cesare is inherently built for conquest. By his late teens, he finds himself overwhelmed by ecclesiastical titles he never sought. Bishop, archbishop, papal representative. The list grows like an invasive vine. Each promotion marks a triumph for his father, Rodrigo Borgia, who is meticulously crafting a political dynasty. Yet for Cesare, each new title feels like another bar in the gilded cage from which he longs to escape. Then, in 1492, everything shifts. Rodrigo Borgia ascends to the papacy as Pope Alexander VI. This is a monumental victory for the family, but a calamity for anyone who believed the papacy was rooted in piety. For Cesar, this marks the beginning of a new chapter. Overnight, he becomes the Pope's son, a notion that horrifies moralists, but delights those who truly understand the nature of power. As you reflect on Cesar's journey, consider the weight of expectation and the desire for freedom. What would you do in his place? Cesar's future, with his father on the throne of St. Peter, transforms from one of spiritual duty into a weapon poised for action. Yet this newfound closeness to power comes at a heavy cost. To forge political alliances and bolster the Borgia's influence, Rodrigo thrusts Cesar into the College of Cardinals at the tender age of 18. While most young men are out drinking, dueling, and seeking the attention of girls, Cesar finds himself draped in scarlet robes, surrounded by a council of elderly churchmen. He pretends not to notice the absurdity of his situation. Though Cesar accepts his title with an outward calm, inside, he simmers with resentment. He performs his duties impeccably, attends councils, issues decrees, and even engages in diplomatic missions. Yet beneath every polished gesture lies a young man who loathes the role he has been forced to play. Each sermon feels like an act, every prayer seems like a delay, and every meeting with the scheming cardinals serves as a reminder that his true talents are squandered on a stage he never wished to occupy. Those who know him well can see it in his gaze, sharp, calculating, and restless. Cesar is not meant to bless people, he is meant to lead armies. Even the whispers among the Roman elite confirm what he already knows: he doesn't belong in the church. Cesar stands out too, magnetic, too ambitious, and perhaps too dangerous. Those observations ring true. His presence in the College of Cardinals resembles placing a tiger on a velvet cushion, elegant yet fundamentally misplaced. Yet he waits, for Cesare understands a crucial truth. Power is a game of timing. He knows that the moment will arrive when he can shed his red robes and reveal his true self. When that moment comes, Italy will feel the tremors of change. Cesare Borgia's transformation from a reluctant cardinal to an unstoppable warlord does not unfold gradually, it detonates. By the mid-1490s, Italy's political landscape is shifting like tectonic plates, poised for an earthquake. The invasion of the peninsula by the French king, Charles VIII, sends shockwaves through every duchy, republic, and noble household. While others are gripped by panic, Cesar perceives opportunity. He has spent years trapped in scarlet robes, masquerading as the churchman he never wished to be. The invasion creates fractures in the political order, and Cesar recognizes them immediately. Each collapsing alliance, each frightened noble, and every shifting loyalty presents him with a chance to break free. The final catalyst emerges in 1498. In a move almost unthinkable for a cardinal, Cesar takes action. He resigns, officially requesting release from his vows. Unofficially, he shatters the door of his destiny. Pope Alexander VI grants this request, not out of piety, but because he recognizes the immense potential within his son. Cesar would be wasted behind an altar. On the battlefield, he could forge an empire, and he fully intends to do just that. To transition from cardinal to commander, Cesar needs legitimacy. He secures it through a politically savvy marriage alliance. The French king, now Louis XII, agrees to support Cesar, provided he receives papal approval for his own marital situation. It's a beautifully shameless exchange, lacking in spirit, yet rich in ambition. With the French blessing in hand, Cesar becomes Duke of Valentino, adopting the name Ilentino, one that soon strikes fear into the hearts of many. Then comes his transformation. He sheds his church garments and embraces armor as if he has been waiting for this moment his entire life. He trains with soldiers, studies battle tactics, recruits mercenaries, and builds a personal force that is loyal not to the church or to Rome, but to him alone. His charisma draws men to him, while his ruthlessness keeps them in line. Observers are astonished by how swiftly this change unfolds. Isn't it fascinating how one can redefine their path? Once, he was a cardinal, gracefully navigating ceremonies. Now he is a warrior, leading troops into peril without a second thought. This isn't merely a transformation, it's a revelation. The true Cesare has emerged, capturing Italy's attention with a blend of fascination and fear. A former cardinal has risen as a formidable warlord, and everyone understands the implications. Cesare Borgia is poised to carve out his own domain from the fractured landscape of Italy, leaving no one safe. Having shed his cardinal's robes, Cesare swiftly pursues his true ambitions. With the support of the papacy and the French military, he sets his sights on Romagna, a mosaic of semi-independent cities in central Italy. These territories are ruled by petty tyrants, mercenaries, and aging nobles who cling to the outdated belief that power is inherited rather than seized. Cesare harbors no such illusions. The campaign unfolds in 1499, and it transcends mere conquest. It carries a deeper message. Cesare does not march like a feudal lord demanding tribute. He advances as a modern strategist. He employs a blend of diplomacy, intimidation, and ruthless force to dismantle decades of entrenched power. One by one, cities like Imola, Forli, Faenza, and Rimini fall under his banner, not because he commands the largest army, but because he possesses the sharpest intellect and the coldest resolve. As you reflect on this extraordinary journey, consider the weight of ambition and its consequences. What does it mean to seize power in a world so fragmented? Perhaps you find yourself pondering the fine line between authority and tyranny. He wields fear like a form of currency. When lords oppose him, he makes examples of their defiance. When cities surrender, he offers them a tempting alternative: stability under his rule, enforced by soldiers who execute orders with chilling precision. His military approach is swift, professional, and meticulously planned. There's no unnecessary cruelty, yet he shows no mercy for those who disobey. But Cesare's ambitions extend beyond mere conquest. He is not here to plunder, he is here to build a state. He organizes rather than loots, appointing governors, reforming taxes, and demanding order. Where chaos once reigned, he imposes structure. Even his adversaries concede that the region was safer under his command than it had been for decades. Still, his grip on power is fraught with tension. His enemies are not confined to the battlefield. They lurk in every corridor of authority, most notably within the Vatican. Nobles tremble at his approach, while cardinals harbor deep-seated disdain for him. The Orsini and Colonna families, akin to Rome's mafia cloaked in robes, constantly plot against him, yet Cesare remains unperturbed. He navigates through alliances and betrayals as if walking through smoke, always calculating his next strategic move. Perhaps the most striking aspect of his campaign is its modernity. He employs spies, manipulates propaganda, forges letters, and even engages in psychological warfare. His battles extend far beyond the physical realm. Cesare anticipates their moves. By the year 1501, he transforms a fragmented wasteland into a thriving principality. No longer just the Pope's son, he becomes Il Valentino, Duke of Romagna, the master of his own carved-out kingdom. Yet, Italy watches closely, and not everyone is applauding. Some are sharpening their knives. Cesare Borgia has forged something dangerous, a central Italy not governed by tradition or title, but by sheer will. His will, conquering territory, is one challenge, maintaining it is another. Cesare understands that ruling Italy demands more than swords and banners. It requires absolute loyalty. Since such loyalty is scarce in Renaissance politics, he cultivates it through fear, brilliance, charm, and when necessary, removal. His power stands on three pillars: his army, his spies, and his uncanny ability to foresee betrayal before it occurs. He quickly learns that Italian mercenaries are as loyal as cats, affectionate at dinner, but deadly by morning, so he hires the best and keeps a watchful eye on them. His commanders include battle-hardened captains like Ramiro Dorca, Michelato Corella, and the infamous condottiero Vitalo Vitali. Yet, Cesare never forgets one essential rule of Renaissance warfare. Imagine a world where trust is a fragile illusion. Mercenaries might smile right before delivering a fatal blow. To safeguard himself, he establishes an intricate spy network, one that rivals the most powerful courts. Letters are intercepted, messengers are bribed, and whispers from taverns reach Cesare within hours. He rewards his informants generously, while traitors face punishment with dramatic flair. His reputation grows, and he becomes known for not only his discipline, but also for his unyielding stance against betrayal. The nobles of Romagna despise him for this. They resent his reforms and fear his unwavering control, loathing the thought of a Borgia ruling over them. In their frustration, they conspire, often with reckless abandon, as if unaware of the stakes at play. In 1502, a group of these lords forms the Maggi conspiracy, convinced that Cheshire is too distracted to notice their plotting. But he is keenly aware. At first, he plays the part of the diplomat, offering smiles and handshakes while quietly orchestrating their downfall. Cheshire understands that eliminating a conspiracy too soon only breeds new conspirators. Instead, he allows their confidence to grow, biding his time until he can strike with military precision and political cunning. What follows becomes the stuff of legend. Cheshire invites several conspirators to a peace meeting in Senegalia, setting the stage for an unforgettable confrontation. As you reflect on this tale, consider the delicate balance of power and trust. What would you do in such a high-stakes game? They accepted, thinking they had outsmarted him. Yet Cheshire arrives calm, unarmed, and smiling, a troubling sign for anyone in his presence. He greets them one by one, arresting them on the spot. Some face immediate execution, while others meet a more sinister fate at the hands of Michael Toto, Cesar's cold-blooded enforcer, whose loyalty is both unquestioned and unsettling. The message is unmistakable. Cesare Borgia does not merely punish treason, he orchestrates it, exposes it, and annihilates it in ways that make future betrayal feel like a death sentence. However, every powerful force eventually encounters a storm. To truly grasp Cesare Borgia's ascent, one must consider his partnership with the man equally ambitious, his father, Pope Alexander VI. Together, they form one of the most formidable and feared duos in Renaissance history. Rome has witnessed ruthless popes before, but never a father-son pair reshaping Italy like pieces on a chessboard. Alexander provides legitimacy, wealth, and political authority, while Cesare contributes strategy, strength, and a charisma so potent that it borders on weaponized charm. As you reflect on this intriguing dynamic, Consider the blend of power and ambition that defines their legacy. Would you be curious to explore how their influence reshaped the course of history? Their relationship is not tender, but remarkably efficient. Two brilliant minds unite with a shared ambition to establish a powerful dynasty in an Italy torn apart by petty rulers and relentless wars. While other popes hide behind the decorum of their position, Alexander behaves more like a secular monarch. He bestows upon Caesare cardinalships, dukedoms, lands, and armies, wielding papal excommunications like strategic weapons, eliminating enemies from God's favor whenever it suits his political needs. Each papal bull he signs marks another stride in Caesare's expansion. In turn, Caesare transforms Rome into a command center, appointing captains throughout the region and enforcing order with chilling efficiency. The reports he sends to his father resemble military communications more than spiritual updates. Together, they generate wealth through taxes, alliances, marriages, bribes, and occasionally inventive adjustments to church finances. Their adversaries label them corrupt, immoral, and unholy, while their allies hail them as geniuses. Caesar views those around him as either obstacles or assets, with nothing in between. The Roman elite quakes in fear. Cardinals tread carefully with their words, and noble families like the Orsini and Colonna scheme but hesitate, fully aware that Caesar's spies infiltrate even their own homes. Can you feel the tension in the air? The stakes are high, and the game is far from over. Diplomats from France, Spain, and Venice watch in awe as a father-son duo orchestrates a papal household that operates like a military headquarters. It's a sight unlike any they've encountered. However, beneath the surface of their power, tensions are brewing. Jess the son is striving for independence. He desires to rule as a prince, not merely as an extension of papal authority. His ambitions grow. He seeks more land, greater autonomy, and personal power. Alexander, his father, feels a mix of pride and caution. He recognizes that Jess's ambition is like a wildfire. It can be a powerful tool against their enemies, yet it poses a risk if left unchecked. Both father and son, however, are unaware of the precarious foundation on which their empire stands. Their strength is intricately tied to Alexander's life. As long as he remains alive, Jess's efforts to build a state seem unstoppable. Every conquest, every alliance, every political maneuver hinges on one critical factor: the Pope must not die. In the unpredictable landscape of Renaissance Italy, that certainty is far from assured. By 1503, Tesser Borgia has reached the zenith of his power. His armies dominate the Romagna, while his enemies lie defeated, scattered, or masquerading as allies. His reforms are transforming central Italy into a cohesive state. He is both feared and admired, even drawing the attention of Niccolò Machiavelli, who studies him intently, taking notes as if he's observing a living blueprint for political mastery. Isn't it fascinating how ambition can shape destinies? As we reflect on this story, consider the delicate balance of power and the unforeseen consequences of ambition. Would you like to explore this further, or perhaps take a moment to rest? It happens, the moment that could change everything. In August 1503, Pope Alexander VI, the father of Caesar, falls gravely ill. Whispers ripple through Rome. Was it poison, malaria, tainted wine, or perhaps divine retribution? The truth remains elusive, but the consequences are clear. Within days, the powerful Pope is on the brink of death, taking with him the very foundation of the Boer Empire. Caesar rushes to his father's side, only to find himself stricken by the same fever. Some speculate they have both been poisoned, while others believe the summer air around the Vatican is thick with disease. Regardless of the cause, Cesar is bedridden, barely able to stand as the most pivotal political moment of his life unfolds. On August 18th, Pope Alexander VI passes away,